From the North Beach Podcast Company in partnership with TSN, welcome to episode 12 of season 2 of the Ray and Greg's Hockey Podcast. Darren Greger along my good friend Ray Ferraro. And I don't know how we missed this in episode 11 and teeing up episode 11. Now, normally what we do week to week, Ray, is we banter about our lives, the beginning of the podcast, the end of the podcast.
Sure.
Maybe because we had so many headlines to get to last week, I didn't acknowledge this. So we've got another busy week of headlines coming up shortly. But I had a glorious moment 10 days ago. And it actually wasn't a moment, it was an experience. And you know what that experience was?
I hesitate to guess.
I got a haircut. Yeah, I got a haircut.
Where? Like hardware store?
Wow.
I mean, I can see the volume has been brought back down. You were getting a little Q-tip-ish.
See, that's you know, I look at Marc Bergevin, I look at some of the guys around the National Hockey League, right, who've got the flow going. And I mean, it's in the pandemic. What are you going to do? You know, we don't have the freedoms of going to, you know, the salon and getting a haircut. That's just kind of the way it is. And, you know, James Duthie's wife, Cheryl, God love the woman, lovely lady. She's got to stop cutting his hair because it's ridiculous. And then I'm looking at Marc Bergevin, and he's got the flow, and I'm looking at guys around the NHL, and they've got the flow. And I'm envious. I've got hair envy, as do you, of course.
Well, of course I do.
But mine, you're right. I can't get the flow. Mine just goes poof. It's like a chia pet.
Yeah. See, Cammie cuts my hair. Get the trimmer out, little buzzer on there. Bzz, 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 bzz. She does. I think sometimes she does it. She's not even paying attention. But how would you know?
Yeah.
There's really, you can't really mess this up. But it does look a lot more tidy. The one thing I will say, it looks tidier and less gray.
Really?
It was starting to get way gray.
Yeah. You watch The Sopranos, right?
Yeah. You're not that bad. No.
Well, who's the guy? Paul Nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. He had the white walls.
Yeah.
Honestly, I've had that reoccurring, call it a dream. I kind of think of it as a nightmare of waking up one morning and looking in the mirror and I've got the white walls. And I'll tell you, it's coming. Well, see, I have a different dream. I wake up and there's even less. Have you ever had the dream of your teeth are falling out? I mean, it's a nightmare. It's an anxiety nightmare, right?
Oh, really?
No,
these teeth don't fall out, Dregs. These teeth, I mean, I've been hitting the face with sticks and pucks, and we call these trail teeth. They never fall out.
Tie-domi, they're made out of wood?
Oh, they're not, I don't know what it is. They don't fall out.
No. All right, want to get to headlines?
Let's jump on it.
Lots cooking today, my friend. So the Toronto Maple Leafs sweep the Edmonton Oilers in a 3-game set decisively in a mini-series. They outscore them 13-1. 0 points in the series for Connor McDavid. Now, 0 points for Austin Matthews, even though Matthews only played the one game. So when you analyze that series, does it tell you more about the Edmonton Oilers or does it tell you more about where the Toronto Maple Leafs are right now?
Well, I think it establishes that Toronto's that much better than everybody else in the division as of March the 4th. Like there's really no comparison. I mean, they took a team that was, I believe, 11-2 in their previous 13 games, and they just dismantled them. Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid don't have a point. They didn't even really, as a team, stress the Toronto goalies. Toronto plays 3 goalies in the series, and all of them look like all-stars by the time it's finished.
Right.
I was surprised they took them apart like that. But I think this, you know, it tells us that Edmonton ran over a bunch of teams that, you know, aren't as good as Toronto either. But it also tells me that when you're playing teams multiple times, you got to be careful how you evaluate either of those teams, because that's a week in time. And that, I mean, if you played Montreal early in the season, they stampeded over top of you. And now Montreal can't score. Yeah. And you're among their other issues right now, but you're like, same team, 2 different times in the schedule. Toronto has done this though at 18-4-1. They've done this the whole year. I can remember one really bad game and it was 22 minutes of a bad game against Ottawa because they were up 5-1. Then they took a nap and they lost the game. But other than that, they've been outstanding.
I don't know if you caught it on Twitter. We're recording the podcast, episode 12 here on Thursday. Rob Tychkowski, I get Rob Tychkowski in Edmonton. He's a beat reporter there. I like his work. He's a funny guy. And I find him quite funny on social media as well. Leon Draisaitl didn't find him quite as humorous post-game. Did you see the exchange?
Oh, yeah. Now I saw the tail end of it. I didn't hear the first question until this morning.
Right.
Where Draisaitl gave a pretty tight answer to Rob's first question. So this is one thing. It's so interesting. I can easily see both sides of this because I've sat on both chairs.
You used to be that, and I speak from experience when I say that. I was in a couple of scrums with you, and you intimidated me in scrums. Let's be fair. I don't know if I ever
was it my height?
No, you just that steely stare, like you're just like when
Sure.
Anyway, so there were a couple of exchanges that I recall with you in scrums. So I get that kind of cutting sarcasm, wit. So you appreciate, I cut you off, but you appreciate where Leon Draisaitl was coming from with his sarcasm.
Yeah. So, but this is what I know is, so the reporters all identify themselves on the Zoom call. Of course, it's different when you're standing in the scrum, you can actually see the guy, but your antenna goes up with certain people right away. And so, the things we find funny about Rob in the way that Rob, and I text him quite frequently, man, I think he's sharp and funny. I text him and say, man, that one made me laugh.
Yeah.
And that probably doesn't go over as well with the players. And so when the first question is asked, and I don't really remember how it was framed, basically, nobody scored in 3 games kind of thing. I would assume Draisaitl's antenna goes up a little bit.
Sure.
And so you give I'm not giving you a long answer. I'm not going to get into it because the third question of it after no, this was really great, I enjoyed not scoring. The next question was Ryan Rishaug.
Yeah.
And he gave quite a lengthy answer. So it caught him at the wrong time. Maybe it was the wrong guy asking the wrong question at a time that, made you uncomfortable or made him agitated. I get it. But I get the second question from Rob too, is that in the Zoom, you only get a certain amount of time to ask a question. So he was pissed off.
Yeah.
And so he said, speaking of not good enough, basically so they had a little knock of coconuts together there, and today's the next day.
Yeah. All right, let's go down the highway in Alberta to Calgary, where the Flames need something real good to happen in a hurry. There's lots of understandable speculation that Jeff Ward not only is on a hot seat, but he's on thin ice. Use any adjective or cliche you want. Which surprised me a little bit because Brad Treliving has been general manager for 7 years, and I believe Jeff Ward is his 4th coach. So I don't think he wants to chew through another one. They have been remarkably inconsistent. I did an Ottawa-Calgary game last Saturday afternoon, and they look good. I mean, Goudreau was flying. Backlund was engaged. Matthew Tkachuk, was a difference maker in that game. And then they followed up with an absolute clunker, which fuels more speculation. The speculation suggests that it's a culture issue. There's something in that room that isn't right. I mean, do you buy it, number one? And number two, what does that even mean?
Okay, so I'll start with the fact of the matter is that they've been unbelievably, as you mentioned, inconsistent all season. That game that they played the day of the clunker, that was their 9th game in 15 days. Eventually, the fact is you're going to get worn down and you're going to have ups and downs. So that's the fact. There's another fact is that when Jacob Markstrom got hurt, David Riddick had to take over in goal. He gave up 11 goals in 2.5 games in Ottawa. One from outside the blue line, one he turned over behind the net. He played one good game and he was a mess in the other 2.
Yeah.
Gaudreau has gone quiet again. He's got no goals in his last 8 games. He's got 9 on the year, but none in his last 8. Sean Monahan's their number 1 center. He's got 2 goals in 17 games.
Right.
He doesn't move the needle enough to be your top line center. So I think this team should be better, Dregs. I'm unfailing in my view of that. However, I'm really quite surprised and disappointed at the way that they've played. You ask about the culture. Well, I mean, culture's hard to define, except it's kind of everything. It's, it's your work. It's like, are you together in this, or are guys pulling in different directions? It's focus. Pretty clearly, they didn't have their focus in game 3 of that series. Their warm-up looked like a beer league team. They had 2 guys run together outside the blue line. Gaudreau shot a puck off Monahan's head. Lucic tripped and fell in the corner. Like, they looked like, I don't know, it looked chaotic in there. Like, do they have desperation to not fail? They're always behind.
Yeah.
And so all of that stuff tells me the culture, the commitment, the focus, the togetherness, just, it should be better than it is, because I think Calgary's a good team, and they're just not right now. I mean, they're 10-11-2. They're right near the bottom in goals for. Like, it's really surprising. I just think they should be better at this.
All right. Well, more carnage in Montreal. You cannot be critical of Marc Bergevin and suggest that he just likes to stay calm and just go about his business. Man, he was the most aggressive general manager in the offseason, recognizing so many concerns that he had with the makeup of his roster. They have a brilliant 10-game start. Then the wheels start to wobble before falling off, which leads to the firing of Claude Julien and Kirk Muller. And then on Tuesday, in a strange scenario, Marc Bergevin waltzes up to Stéphane Waite, the goalie coach for the Montreal Canadiens, during the second period or intermission, and says, "Oh, by the way, you're fired." In-game fires his goalie coach. According to Berge and according to Carey Price, they did not have a conversation prior to the dismissal of Stéphane Waite about the potential of a goalie coach change. And now, as we know, it's Sean Burke, who's the director of goaltending for the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, this just has weird slapped all over it, doesn't it?
It was a strange deal. So he goes ahead and fires Julien, which, I mean, you could see there was some signs there talking about, there's a heavy energy around the team. That came from Shea Weber. I'm paraphrasing that quote, but Julien had made a couple of comments that, in my mind, sort of separated himself from the team. We tell the guys don't take penalties. We tell them don't shoot the puck over the glass. They still do it.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of a weird scenario. So they fired the coach. The goalie coach was interesting to me, Stéphane Waite, because him and Price have worked together a long time. Bergevin did an interview yesterday, and he talked quite extensively about it. And one of the things he mentioned was the pattern of Price's play over the last little bit. Now, that bubble is what we remember of Carey Price, of, the heyday of Price, where he was just the best goalie in the game, and there was no debating it. And for those, I don't know, what are the 10 or 12 games they played in the bubble, he was amazing. But go back to last year, go back to the year before, and it wasn't. There was always some big sways, some ups and downs. And so clearly they saw this start to the year and said, we got to do something different. I would find it to be even more odd if it's not a goaltender coach with the reputation that Sean Burke has for basically reclamation projects. He himself was a reclamation project back in the day. Berkey was a good goalie, but the wheels were off for him, and he found some help with his game and had excellent results late in his career. Devin Dubnyk, Ilya Bryzgalov, Mike Smith, they all took major jumps under Burke's tutelage. And clearly they think that this can work again.
All right, we're going to shift to a positive story, and that's the Tampa Bay Lightning coming up in just a minute here. But I want your thoughts on the Buffalo Sabres because I try and make sense of what's going on there. And
how's that going for you?
Oh, yeah, it's not going so well. It's not going so well. I feel for Kevin Adams to some degree. You've got an inexperienced general manager who has a very strong-minded head coach in Ralph Krueger. And, some wonder how that's kind of muddied things up in Buffalo as well. But you have any idea how this is going to end in Buffalo? It seems like it's going to end in a lot of change.
It seems like it's not going to end well. I mean, like right now, they're not even competitive. You know, they've got 46 goals for in 20 games.
Yeah.
You know, like Jack Eichel, I think he's still got 2 goals in 18 games. Taylor Hall hasn't scored in 20. Jeff Skinner hasn't got a goal this year. He's got 18 goals in the last 100 games he's played. Mm-hmm. So couple that with Rasmus Ristolainen, their best defenseman, who had COVID and really has had a struggle recovering from it. Linus Ullmark, their number 1 goalie's been out. Like you couple all that together and you're like they don't have a chance.
No.
And they're not even close. But the problem becomes, so how do you fix it? You know, and the other night in New York, the 2,000 fans that are allowed in the building are chanting, "We want Eichel." Right? Like, are they going to make a move with Eichel? I mean, you can't trade Skinner. He's got 7 years left after this one at $9 million per. That's not happening. Taylor Hall's on a 1-year deal. Like, he says he's open to re-signing. Yeah, he's got no goals. Yeah. Of course he's open to re-signing. So the problem, the easy thing to say is tear it down. Start again. Well, haven't they already done that? Yeah. They're 9 years with no playoffs. If they trade Jack Eichel, and walk on from Taylor Hall, you're another 5 years by the time the guy, whoever you're going to draft, is going to make an impact on your team enough to really turn it. They're in a tough spot there, but this is going to end poorly because it seems as though Kruger's out of answers.
Yeah, definitely looks that way. All right, let's wrap up headlines, making way for Hilary Knight, who's joining us in episode 12 of the Ray and Darren Hockey Podcast. We're going to wrap up with a positive story. And, hey, by the way, there are other divisions, right? The NHL.
Yes, we keep hearing about that there are other divisions. You know?
And so it should be a surprise to no one that the Tampa Bay Lightning have run off the time of the recording 5 straight wins. They're now 7 points back of the Toronto Maple Leafs for the league lead, but they've got 4 games in hand on the Toronto Maple Leafs. So it's so hard to defend, as we know. But, when you look at the Tampa Bay Lightning, it's plausible, right? It's more than plausible. It's believable that, provided they stay healthy, right? You say that about any of the contending teams. But the Tampa Bay Lightning seem to have the same swagger that they had, going into return to play.
Yeah, what I find interesting about this, Dregs, is there's 2 teams in Toronto and Tampa that at one point were about, and I liked it, offense and flow and skill. And they both came to this realization, Tampa because they got kicked in the chops by Columbus and swept in 4 games, and Toronto maybe because they kept losing to Tampa and Boston all the time, was that we've got to find a little more firmness to our game. And it's not about that they need to fight a lot. Tampa doesn't fight. They went and got some bigger, stronger, heavier players. And they mixed them in with the skill of, that they had accumulated. So I'm looking at Tampa right now, and they are just running roughshod over most of that Central Division. Mm-hmm. But you look at it and you're like, so what? We're hearing a lot about, Toronto's beating up on a weak Northern Division. Dallas is a mess right now.
Yeah.
Detroit's not good. Nashville is been a disaster, really. Columbus is, they just finally won, but they've lost 5 straight. Chicago's kind of a rebuilding team, yet they've got 28 points. Tampa's just better than everybody. Carolina and Florida have had outstanding starts. I'm really interested in Florida. Are they for real this year? Mm-hmm. Like, does this, they're 13-4-4. They're off to a really noteworthy start. But Tampa's got 3 straight shutouts for Vasilevsky. Like 3 straight. He hasn't given up a goal in 2 weeks. Like, that's kind of hard to believe. Don't forget, they don't have Nikita Kucherov either.
Yeah.
They got 71 goals in 20 games, and they don't have Nikita Kucherov. I mean, this is a really good team.
It's going to feel like, we talk about this on an annual basis, especially with star players like Kucherov. It's going to feel like an unbelievable trade when this guy is healthy again and up to speed coming back into that lineup.
Oh, but don't, and Dregs, you know what? We can mark that down for episode maybe 22 or so when Kucherov does come back, and the uproar that they ditched him on long-term injury reserve all season to get this surgery, and he comes back with no cap hit for the playoffs. That, I don't know. I'm going to guess it's episode 22, maybe mark it down.
Okay.
But it's coming up.
All right. Well, we'll have to check it out and have an injury update. We Throat Punch coming up. Ask Ray anything around the corner as well. But our interview today with Hilary Knight is brought to you by our friends at coolbet.co. Chris from Coolbet will join us a little bit later. We'll talk about the latest odds news. Remember, you've got to be 19, and Coolbet reminds you, stay cool. Always. Bet responsibly. Well, we're pleased to be joined by Hilary Knight, one of the many stars in the PWHPA. And Hilary, you're here on the Ray and Darren podcast to talk about the Dream Gap Tour. And what an exciting tour that is, especially when you kick off last weekend in the fashion that you did, Madison Square Garden in New York. What an exciting opportunity for all the great women of the sport to showcase their skills.
Yeah, we're excited. I'm sorry we couldn't have an easier acronym. I obviously, I get mumbled too with the PWHPA, but no, it's phenomenal. We had year one last year, and really what we set out to do is we had a collection of players, and we're like, we know we're amazingly good and talented, but we continue to have this gap between having the adequate resources to train, programming to compete outside of the national teams. And then two, the visibility issue is people only discover women's hockey every 4 years. So how do we kind of juggle all this and put together something? So that's where the Dream Gap Tour began. And in year two, now we've got an amazing roster of, brands and corporations that want to be a part of it. And we've renamed it to the Secret Dream Gap Tour. But to play at Madison Square Garden, I mean, the venue just, it speaks for itself. So to make history there was phenomenal, and we're really looking forward to the United Center come this weekend.
You talk about all the extra attention and sponsors, and talk a little bit about what maybe the forerunner of the women's sporting movement, Billie Jean King, getting involved, supporting, and really giving a direction to all you talented athletes that were kind of looking for that direction, I think. Anyway, talk about Billie Jean.
Yeah. Billie Jean's the GOAT, right? Greatest of all time. What she did in tennis, and it's just, it transcended tennis specifically, right? We saw it across all industries, pushing for more equity in sport. And honestly, I think she was one of the first calls. Said, look, we just had this league fold. There's something right now that exists, but it's not sustainable. It's not what we're looking for as players. How do we navigate the upcoming, terrain? And to have Billie Jean King sign up and her group and Women's Sports Foundation, and to essentially guide us through this time of uncertainty it speaks volumes to what she's done in sports and outside of sports, but then also her legacy and what she continues to do to try and facilitate change and have a positive impact. And obviously the sport of ice hockey right now, but other sports as well.
Hilary, 20 years ago, Cammy, to people that don't know, my wife, they were in this battle for recognition, for acceptance 20 years ago. And I saw the frustration because it just never went anywhere. Nobody would sink their hooks into it. Nobody would buy in. I think the moment for me when I realized the commitment that the female athlete had was when we were in the gym, and I realized she was training her ass off the same way I was, but she had to love the game more than I did because there was nowhere else to play. Yeah. It feels to me like there's momentum that can't be stopped. Does it feel like that for you?
It does. And I joke around. I'm like, I don't know if the planets are aligning or what's going on, but, it took us some time, and we're obviously standing on, Cami among other teammates' shoulders to, build this new future. Right. And we're just one more piece in the puzzle of moving the sport forward. But it feels like things are kind of coming together at the right time, and we're finally getting the recognition, the visibility, the resources that we need to, one, perform, and then two, do this more so as a full-time gig, right? Because a lot of my teammates who aren't on either national team or a European national team, they have to do 2 or 3 other jobs or give lessons at the local hockey rink just to be able to wake up and train with us. So what we're really looking forward is to change the sport, but not just for, the next future and grab a couple $1 million, but for many, many decades to come. So we haven't had the platform, but thankfully people like Cami have built part of that platform for us to stand on. So it's, I think at sometimes you're just like, I'm just another one, pushing the sport forward. But what we're doing today is extremely significant. And, we're fortunate for the pioneers that came before us.
I thought was really cool about the game on Sunday. So I came in, Riley, our older guy, was at soccer. I came in, it was in the middle of the second period. And I watched like 3 or 4 minutes as I was, changing, like to sit down. And I'm like, it just looked like another game.
Yeah.
And I hope that comes across like the positive way I mean it. I'm like, it should be on TV. The game was great. It looked like another game that I've been watching. Is that what it's starting to feel like when you go play?
Yeah. I think before there's this disconnect, right? And all these misnomers of like, what is women's hockey? And, they're women, they're not as fast, or they're not this, or they're not that. And, I was actually clicking through Instagram the other day and I was like, oh my God, that's a sick goal. Like, who scored that? Thinking like, it was one of the NHL guys, because our clips aren't on social media as actively as theirs are, because they play more games. And I think it was like Brianna Decker's goal. And I was like, oh, yep. Like, I was there. I had a front row seat, unfortunately, but it's just, that's what it's doing, right? We're really grabbing that visibility component and connecting and making all those connections now. And now that we have more NHL clubs interested in seeing value in what we're doing and our products high end, I mean, the sky's the limit for us. So it's really exciting.
How far away are you guys, do you think, from bringing both sides of this together? Because I think everybody realizes there's really only one road forward. There has to be one league. There can't be 2 different things going on. Now the NWHL played up at Lake Placid. Like, what was the PWHPA thinking as that was going on? That's question 1. Question 2 is the Dream Gap Tour, to me, is another astounding part is this doesn't include any Canadians or Europeans because of the travel issues. Yet people are supportive of the women's sport. They're like, women's hockey is awesome. Why aren't we watching it? So how do those 2 things fit together?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I do agree. I think you need one league that's the premier league, right? There's always room for other facets of different levels, for sure. But I think one of the things that we've always prided ourselves on is our skill level and the caliber of player that we have involved in our organization. We're player-led, player-driven, but we have the best players in the world, and I think that's a big differentiator for us. And you want the best players in the world on TV, right? And you want them to be able to create this ticket. So, regardless of national teams, when a professional women's hockey game is on TV, that you're going to get the big numbers and you're going to get the big engagement, and brands and partnerships and clubs are going to be happy with the results. So I think, sometimes you feel like us specifically, we feel like our gender's on the line a lot of the times because we're trying to prove that we're good enough, even though we are good enough, the product's there. But you want to make sure that you're delivering it in the right way, in the most professional way as possible. And and two, to go off the global pandemic front, we're not able to cross the border, right? So that also adds another fold of complications. And we had a phenomenal plan looking to this year, and we've gone to C, D, E, F, G, and now we're back in the later part of the alphabet. But to be able to put host these games, whether that's, at the Garden or at the United Center, and, another couple TBD hopefully coming through, is phenomenal. But yes, I do wish that we could get the Canadiens involved and the restrictions are lifted when the time comes. But to have the interest in Canada right now for these US hubs in the regions playing is outstanding.
How difficult has it been to train, both more mentally, I think, than physically, than with no defined, our season starts here? I mean, just recently that it seems like the women's worlds is a go, as it should be, but that becomes like a focal point as opposed to just working out because, gee, I should be working out. How hard has that been?
So hard. When everything hit and it became way more serious than I think any of us really anticipated, and Worlds is canceled, NHL's canceled, NBA's canceled, everyone's getting canceled. You're sitting there scratching your head being like, oh my gosh, when's our next touch point? And I think that's the hardest thing is, we're so dialed into our structure, our schedules, we're creatures of habit, and to not have that rhythm of schedule or that consistency of touch point, to not be able to train with other people on the ice or to have it just us in our own silos all over the country, it's really difficult. So we did our best to arrange virtual training sessions on Zoom, but they don't replace the real thing, right? So we're all in it to some extent in the same boat. But not having that touch point of being able to read the body language and create that chemistry with teammates has been the most difficult part of this process. And then mentally just being like, I don't know when the next time is, but whenever that next time is, I have to be ready for the opportunity. So that actually became more stressful as we got later into summer and fall, because it's like, that's usually when you're gearing up to start a season and you don't know when you're going to play a game again.
Now you're only 31. I mean, you're in the prime of your career here. So I'm not trying to cut your playing career short in any way in asking this question, but have you given some thought about what your future might be in hockey? Is it coaching? Is it management? And if the answer is yes, then why can't that be in the National Hockey League?
Yeah, no, I would love to stay in the sport. I don't think I'd be a very good coach. So
isn't it funny? Some people know they'd be a good coach and others are like, nah, it's not for me.
Yeah, and everyone's like, oh, you'd be a great coach. I'm like, no, I really wouldn't. I can't really articulate like how to shoot a puck or to do these things,
Are you a drill wrecker?
Sometimes.
See, that means you are. You're one of those, you're a creeper back in the line, right?
I go third. I usually try to go third or fourth. Yeah. And then I always turn to my teammate after they've drawn it up. I go, okay, give me the Spark Notes version. What are we doing?
Right. Some guys and girls got to get out there first.
Yep.
They know the drill or they don't, but they still got to go first. I'd slide back. I was like, I'm not so
I'll let them go, feel it out. Coach might blow the whistle. But
so coaching, it's management that you'll probably gravitate to.
Yeah, no, I think it would be awesome to get the experience to pursue a career path in management. And I think, one of my ultimate like lofty goals would to be put together an ownership group, an all women's ownership group to own one of these teams, both the men's and the women's side. That would kind of be the dream. So we'll see. I know I got to make a few more dollars, and this career path isn't paying me enough to get there right now. But I'm confident that with the right experience and all the other things that we're doing off the ice, being a part of the PWHPA and learning all these other facets to business and other industries, it's been a great learning experience. So hopefully those skill sets will apply.
Well, back to Billie Jean King for a moment. Part of her address, her speech and communication to you guys is, women have been conditioned to take the crumbs. Yeah. You don't want the crumbs.
Yeah.
We won't, like, you're not talking about the crumbs. You're saying
right. I want the club.
Right. Somebody else can have the crumbs, right? So now you're between games here. What are your weeks like between MSG and the United Center? You're pretty busy, of course.
Yeah. Honestly, we went back to the drawing board. Kind of, we made some big errors of not being on the ice and playing together for a while. So I'm trying to iron those things out this week and approaching Chicago this weekend. I mean, we're excited. We've actually got a good chunk of players from the Chicago area. So it's going to be great to be back home and play, not in front of fans, right, but play in our hometown. So it's, we won. We technically won last weekend, but we lost the last game, so it didn't feel like we won. So I think we've got a little chip on our shoulder going into the next one.
Okay, so I had to catch up to the scoring thing too.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so it's supposed to be different. It's supposed to be interesting. And I found it, I think that's a really cool way to go about it.
Yeah. No,
Who came up with that?
So that was Jana Hefford, and then obviously advisors and the combination of the board. But we didn't necessarily know how many secret Dream Gap tour stops we could have. So if we had an even number, that was going to be an issue, right? Especially with the prize pot. So trying to have a creative problem solve to not knowing the number of games turned out to be a really unique feature. And I remember our coach was like, don't, give Abby the puck. And I was like, I know we want to get her a hat trick, but like, geez, like, could you chill? And she's the center, right? And he's having her fly. I'm like, what's going on? And then I was like, oh man, that's right. Like we get an extra point if she gets a hat trick.
Right.
So, these little things. And then we could have pulled our goalie, I think, the second game at the Garden, and we didn't want to because then the score differential would have been too close.
Right.
That would have sewered us. So, yeah. All these little nuances that,
So that's why you're third in line. Hilary, that's why you're third in line.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
So you've established that coaching probably isn't for you. You're more on the management side of things, or better yet, ownership. More and more, Hilary, women are popping up in hockey operations around the National Hockey League, almost on a month-by-month basis. But how long are we seriously from a woman having a primary role in coaching on the bench, whatever? We can't be that far away.
I don't think we're that far. It just takes an opportunity, right? I think we've had that sort of synergy of grabbing a lot of the male coaches and bringing them into the women's side, which has been great. And, I think the opposite's going to happen. Some of the women's coaches are going to go coach on the men's side. So it's wonderful. I think before we looked at it and just thinking of the ratio of female coaches, at the collegiate level and wanting to have more women in the coaching positions. So having an emphasis on that would be important as we move forward, but then also getting that experience. And you just need an opportunity and a mentor to be able to kind of show you the road, and you learn a lot that way. But I don't think we're too far off at all.
Good stuff. Well,
it won't be me. Rest assured.
What's that? Oh, it won't be you. All right. Well,
yeah.
Okay. So which one of your teammates is a coach? Like when I'll give you an example. When we were in Hartford, playing 100 years ago, Ron Francis looked like a manager. He just seemed like he was going to be, and he is. Dave Tippett looked like a coach. Like, how you can just picture one of your teammates? Who's the coach?
Oh boy. This is difficult. So Brianna Decker actually currently is a coach. She coaches our U18 US program. Mm-hmm. But in addition to her, probably Kelly Panic. She likes to break.
Isn't it funny? You can just see it, right? You can just see it.
Yeah. And they're breaking it down and like the analytic brain. And I'm just like, okay, cool. Like, this is how I feel.
I'll be over here on the power play. Feed it over here. I like it.
That's awesome, Hilary. Well, you got a lot going on, obviously, with the Dream Gap Tour. So thanks for taking time to join Ray and I on the Ray and Dregs podcast, and all the best moving forward.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. It's good to chat with you guys. So thank you.
Great to see you, Hilary. All the best, eh?
Yeah, thanks.
What a great guest, Hilary Knight. And Ray, as you were asking the question, and you were talking about watching Sunday's game from Madison Square Garden, I think you described it perfectly, right? It's that it was a game. I mean, you could walk by your television at any point, any night, with a condensed NHL schedule, and yeah, you're paying attention to another division game outside of the Canadian division, but you watch it. Okay, I get the gist of that game. It's an okay game. This was exactly that, right? I mean, it could have been an NHL game just based on the quality of play.
And I think that's really important, is that Hilary made mention of it really quickly, but there always seems to be this comparison. Oh, but the men are bigger, or the men shoot the puck harder. There is no comparison to be made. It doesn't matter. What the comparison is the quality of hockey entertaining. And I don't think there's anyone that could say, oh my God, these women aren't fantastic players. Right. She also made mention they haven't been on the ice very much. Right? Like they haven't had access to get on the ice. I thought they put on an amazing show, and you know what? The next game's going to be the same. Yeah. And when this becomes a league, because you have to add, so we're watching 40 players there, right? That's just 40. There's hundreds more that are of that quality, either in Canada, the United States, and Europe. And whatever this league is going to be called when eventually it gets off the ground, because I don't think there's any denying that, it's going to look like that. And you're going to go, you know what? That's a good game. I'm going to sit and watch it. Mm-hmm. They've made incredible strides in the depth of their game. 20 years ago, I was watching Cami play. Excuse me. I'm watching the girls now. And it's like watching us play 20 years ago versus the guys now. Right. The growth has been exponential, and it's great stuff. And I thought she was awesome. She was an awesome guest, and she's funny. She's got great personality. And I'm glad the Secret Dream Gap Tour has gone off as well as it has, and will continue to do so.
All right, Throat Punch was so successful in episode 11 because you started first. And we've kind of made a pact, have we not? Week to week, we don't always have to have the Throat Punch, even though, the fans of Ray and Dregs love it. They love the Throat Punch. But it has to be organic, and it has to be real. We don't make this stuff up, Ray. I
don't want to search for it, Dregs.
No.
I don't want to search for it.
No. Okay, so you start us off. Who's your Throat Punch candidate this week?
One of my yearly rants, I probably did this last year, but I'm going to do it again, and I'm sure I'll do it next year. And that's the goalie interference crap.
Okay.
I can't stand it. I hate when the goal goes in and we're looking at the replay and everybody's kind of wondering, and the coaches are waiting as they're looking at the video to hear from their video coach, like, is this okay? Should we challenge it?
Yeah.
The problem that I have with the rule is this. It's the most important area on the ice, right? The goal crease. That's where a lot of the goals come from. We'd all like, I think, to have a pretty definitive rule about what is or what isn't goalie interference. After all this time, it's still a gut feel rule. I mean, I understand the ruling and the wording. The goalie has to be able to freely play his position. What exactly does that mean? And I'll give you two examples. Brendan Gallagher, right before Claude Julien is fired, bumps into Matt Murray. Murray doesn't even really try to get back up, try to reset. Puck goes by him. It's in the net. It should be the winning goal. It's waved off. No goal. The next night, Calgary and Toronto, William Nylander scores in the last minute to tie the game. It looks like people waiting at a bus stop inside the crease. David Riddick's pushed way back in the net. Yeah. Everybody's flailing away at it. I look at these two plays and I'm like, it's too easy to argue the other side of the play. Whichever the ruling was, it's too easy to argue the other side. And that, I'd like to throat punch that rule because I hate it. I love the international rule, which basically is you can go through the crease. They changed that. But you cannot post up in the crease. And if you do, the whistle's blown and the faceoff goes outside the line. So before any of that mess happens, the play's already dead.
Yeah.
I think it's a better rule.
Yeah. Excellent throat punch. Terrific.
Thank you. And what do you got, Drakes? Because you were actually advertising for help.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Well, I was, because I don't normally like to go after individuals, right? But I feel like they're too deserving, and I will settle on one. So the debate for me in my tiny little pea brain was between Austin Watson of the Ottawa Senators and Alex Ovechkin of the Washington Capitals. Watson hitting Jonathan Drouin from behind. I mean, I guess you could throat punch the referees for not calling a penalty because it was clearly a missed penalty. Just a dangerous unnecessary, disrespectful play. That trumped, though, by Ovechkin's spear to the gonads of Trent Frederick. And
Yes.
I'm choosing to throat punch OV because I wanted to use the word gonads. It's just such an underused word. And I feel like you could say, so you're doing the Leafs Canucks game with Gordon Miller. And Jake Muzzin blocks a slap shot, takes it right in the gonads. Are you going to say that?
No. I will not say that. I'm trying to think what I would say.
Pills?
I think you could say that. I don't know if I would. Can you say, oh, he takes it right in a junk?
Yeah. I mean, chances are you'd say midsection or ouch.
Yeah.
You don't have to say anything more than ouch. Right.
Anyway.
I mean,
okay, but it's just so ridiculous, though, when you think, first of all, Ovechkin shouldn't have been fined. He should have been suspended.
Agreed.
Secondly, I don't know why when we were playing, somebody would get hit and they'd come back to the bench and they'd be like, oh man, and you know how it feels and you know it sucks and you'd start to giggle. I don't know why that's funny, but it just is.
But there's a huge difference here, right? If you look where the referees are and you know that you're not being watched and you tap somebody, just give them a little tap. I mean, of course it hurts, but you do it because you get away with it. You're just trying to get under somebody's skin that you're playing.
Right.
This was vicious, malicious, call it whatever he was. I mean, he didn't want to fight Trent Frederick, and I understand that, even though Ovi's a tough dude, right? He can throw him, but he dismisses the fight. Clearly, this kid is under his skin, and then he does that. So, there. Alex Ovechkin, my throat punch in episode 12. All right, time for a weekly chat with Chris Abbott from coolbet.co. It seems a little premature to be talking about Stanley Cup odds, but I guess it's not. I mean, some clubs are approaching the halfway mark of a 56-game regular season schedule. So throw out some Stanley Cup odds for us today, Chris.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, nothing really surprising, I don't think. The Tampa Bay Lightning in our last release were the Stanley Cup favorite at plus 700, so 7-1 odds. Colorado right behind them at 7.5 to 1, and then you had the Leafs in third at 9 to 1. And I know we're biased to the Canadian teams in the North Division, but I think if you can get in on them at 9 to 1 right now, that's not bad.
Ray, who are you betting on? You're putting money on right now. Are you putting money on the Tampa Bay Lightning, or are you believing what you're seeing in this Toronto Maple Leafs team?
I like the way Toronto's playing right now, and what scares me about Tampa only is nobody ever seems to repeat anymore. Like it just seems impossible. Somewhere there's a pothole. That's the only thing that makes me wonder, because don't forget, Tampa's doing this, and they don't have Nikita Kucherov.
Right.
So, Chris, how do you guys set the, when you're setting the lines, because the teams aren't playing against each other, that's got to be a bigger challenge too.
Well, it's actually, peek behind the curtain. It's a huge exposure of risk for our odds makers, because you're right. Like I look at a team like Carolina at 11 to 1 right now. Maybe they're the best of the bunch. I don't know. Yeah. When they've got a fully healthy roster. So I think from a sportsbook's perspective, it's really, really hard. And you're going on what you believe these teams to be and what you think might happen if they get to the semifinals. I think there's definitely some long shots that could sneak in there too. You've got an Islanders team at 21 to 1 who, they play playoff hockey 56 games of the year. The Blues are still a long shot. We don't talk a lot about the teams out west, especially here in Canada, when we're not playing them now at all. So, those are some teams that stand out to me. And then a little bit of shorter odds, you've got the Bruins at 9 to 1 and Vegas at 9 to 1 as well, who are, I don't know about you guys, but when I'm looking at these bets, I try and find teams that are really, really annoying and hard to play against, because those are the ones that usually have success in the playoffs. And that's why, a Carolina, a Boston, and even a Vegas to a certain degree stand out to me.
All right, let's switch over to curling. You're a big curling guy. I know this. I enjoyed the Scott Tournament of Hearts. My favorite major curling event is the upcoming Brier. Now, curling is good for coolbet.co, right? Scotties were huge. So do you expect more from the Brier?
I hope so. I mean, I do know that, the men's tournament looks to be a little more competitive. I think you had, 3-ish, maybe 4 teams separate themselves to the Scotties. I think there's, 7, 8, 9 teams that could all realistically have a shot at the Brier. So that should lead to some more, I guess, some bets on both sides of the ledger. Whereas at the Scotties, we saw a lot of the favorites getting all the action. So we're really looking forward to it. Brad Gushue, the defending champion from St. John's, is Team Canada. He's the betting favorite. And then Brad Jacobs from Northern Ontario. One of the interesting things we've seen early, though, is the line movement on Kevin Cooey, who, this is how deep the field is. The guy is one of the best ever, and he's a wild card team at this tournament. So we've seen a lot of bets come in on him. I think he opened around 5-1 and now is down to about 3-1.
Drakes was talking earlier about hey, it's maybe a little early, but maybe it's not, about the Stanley Cup odds. Well, spring training's rolling, so World Series odds are out. And how easy is it to project forward? I mean, I look at the Dodgers and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, look how good they are. But then San Diego went and added all these terrific pitchers. And you're like, man, maybe San Diego can be a team that can sneak into a pretty interesting conversation. How are the odds set in your mind right now? Like, do you like them? Do you see some value? And this has got to be difficult. I mean, we're talking about something that's going to happen in October.
It is, but baseball of all the sports, I think, is the one that people think is easiest to predict with the sample size and the numbers and the statistics and what have you. But yeah, the Los Angeles Dodgers pretty much read like an all-star team when you look at their roster. So they're a plus 320 favorite to win the World Series. And you mentioned San Diego, which is interesting. They're third on the list, but I mean, that would put them second in their own division. That's something you got to think about when you're thinking about these things as well. And then, a team like the Atlanta Braves with so much young talent, they're about 10.5-1. And of course, everyone's excited about the Blue Jays, 30-1 odds for them to win the World Series right now. And that might be a bit of a long shot for that to think that might happen, but they're also second on the odds list in the American League East behind the New York Yankees. So obviously somebody thinks they're pretty good. And at 30-1, I don't think you're having to take a hometown discount to bet the Jays.
All right. Great stuff. Thanks for stopping by, Chris. Have a great week.
All right. Thanks, fellas. Thank you so much.
Chris.
We'll talk
Thanks.
soon.
Ask Ray and Darren anything. You can submit your questions to any of our fine social media channels, either Twitter, Instagram, or on the Ray and Darren's website. That's rayandregs.com. Question from Drew Ray. What should the number one priority be in this offseason for the Vancouver Canucks?
Cull as much salary as you can.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if they realize how far they are away from being a really competitive team. My belief, just from living here and listening to the comments from management, not the fans. I mean, the fans can have the opinions that they want because, we're all on the outside of it and you're emotionally invested. But
right.
From management, I keep hearing about, back to the bubble. The bubble was a odd, short frame. It does not indicate what you were. They were outside of the playoffs before the bubble, which expanded more teams into it, right? Their bottom 6 in their lineup is a tire fire. And you can say, yeah, that's the bottom end of their lineup. That's half of your forwards.
Yeah.
You get nothing, zip from. So they're talking about, should they re-sign this player or re-sign that player? They have enough players in the $3.5 to $4 million range that don't give them anything. They cannot be signing players in that range. What I would do is, because I think there's going to be quality players that are going to get squeezed out by the 81.5 cap. I think that's, I mean, you talk to more GMs than me, but I think that's almost a fact, Dregs.
It is, yeah.
And so I think you're going to be able to get really good players on 1-year deals. Start looking for fits. They keep talking about Vasily Podkolzin like he's going to come in and turn the franchise around. He's a 20-year-old kid.
Right.
He's going to come in. He's going to do fine. He's going to be like Nils Höglander. That gives them 2 young forwards. But that's not enough to turn your franchise fortunes around.
No.
So I would say cull salary, look for skill, look for speed, and do it on short term.
And look, all you have to do, and we'll get to Murray's question here on goaltending in Vancouver in just a second, but look around the North Division, right? And you see the patience and the perseverance that does finally pay off. You know, you're seeing that in Toronto. You're seeing it to some degree in Edmonton, obviously, with McDavid and Draisaitl. You're seeing it in Winnipeg with the likes of Scheifele and Nikolai Ehlers and, you know, Pierre-Luc Dubois now. I mean, go down the list. Vancouver just has to be patient and get there.
Here's the part of the patience, Dregs, I don't think people remember. You brought up Winnipeg. Scheifele, Connor, Ehlers, Kopp, Lowry, Appleton. They're all homegrown. Morrissey.
And Roslovic was gone, but he turned into something. Patrick Laine, of course.
So
right?
all of those guys are homegrown, and you've got to sit there, and it's got to be hard. Like Chevy's got the same, Kevin Cheveldayoff's got the same hair as you. It doesn't get long, flowish. It gets wide and gray. Yeah. And so while he's waiting for these guys to prosper, the patience part's the tough part.
Yeah.
But they stuck with it in Winnipeg. They got a really good team. Vancouver has been a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here. They have none of, it's one thing to say Horvat was the number 9 pick. Pettersson was the number 5. Hughes was the number 7. You should hit on those picks.
Yeah.
Virtanen's in the lineup. He was the 6th pick. Eesh. They're, you know, that hasn't quite worked for them. For the most part, they don't have anybody from mid-second round down. I want to say Höglander's their only guy.
Yeah. All right. Murray wants to know which of Vancouver's 3 goalies, and we're zeroing in and asking Ray and Dregs anything on Vancouver because we touched most of the Canadian teams and headlines earlier in the podcast. So Murray wants to know which of Vancouver's 3 goaltenders are you exposing in the expansion draft if you, my friend, are Jim Benning?
Oh, Braden Holtby.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even think it's a conversation, really.
Which would be a big part of the reason why they signed him, right?
Right. And at $3.4 million and having the start he is.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, but why would you claim him if you're Seattle? You're going to have other options.
And there'll be good options. Not that he isn't, but there'll be younger, better options. Right?
Yeah. So to me, it's Holtby for, you know, it's certainly not Demko. It's not going to be, I guess, is DiPietro the other one that he would be referring to, but
probably,
you know, but it's Holtby for sure.
All right. Final question. And it's more Cammy related, to be fair, from Kyle. Okay.
Oh, okay.
You spent a lot of time with Cammy. I mean, as you should.
Well, she is my wife.
Yeah. By the way,
probably spending more time with her than she would really want at this point, but
yeah, without question. And think of this while you're answering the question, Cammy related, because as we wrap up episode 12, we haven't updated the milestone birthday and the planning and all of that.
Yeah, it's not going well.
Okay, we'll get more on that in a second. Yeah. How are teams able to scout now? Question from Kyle. Is it all watching games on TV, or are scouts permitted to attend games live? Will this negatively impact Seattle's expansion draft scouting ability? So this might be too sensitive because Cammy is a big part of the scouting staff.
Well, I'll tell you, in her space, her office.
Yeah.
When I go in there, there's always a book that's open that gets closed. Like there's always a screen that's shut down. Like she's literally on the other side of this wall.
Yeah.
I have no idea what goes on in there. So she does go to the Canucks home game. She's able to go to the game. There's a protocol for the pro scouts. They can go, they go up to a box. They sit in the box. She's the only one in that box.
Yeah.
So everybody's distanced. They do their job. They go right back down the elevator. They get in the car and they go home. So she can get to the games. Lots of video scouting, but they don't watch the games no, they watch them on TV. Cammy watches them on TV, but they have scouting programs that isolate on individual players. So you can just watch one player, whoever that might be. And they must narrow down, there's not 600 players available. There's whichever number players are available, and you keep culling down till you get to the point that you're comfortable making a pick. But yeah, for sure, it would impact the way that they scout. Every team is impacted scouting wise on the amateur and the pro level, right? You can't get to the games you would normally get to.
No question. All right. So big week coming up, followed by another big week. Every week is a big week on the Rain Dregs podcast. How is the planning going? I know you've enlisted family and probably some friends to make sure that you knock this thing out of the park.
Dregs, right now, I'm looking for a ground rule double.
Really?
Yeah. Like the options of what's available and what you can do, of course, that takes things down a lot tighter.
Okay, so hold on. Now, Cammy sent me a picture of you. It looked like you were either finishing up barbecuing.
Yeah, but that picture was from 1990 or something, right?
I know, but I bring it up only because it's probably an opportunity for us to post that picture as part of the podcast. So everybody
good thinking, Dregs. Yeah, good thinking.
Like did you?
I had the mustache. Oh yeah.
Well, there you go. So just do all the barbecuing. Do all of the. I mean, you're not going to be able to host a big party anyway.
No, I would assume we'll have some kind of family Zoom thing, right? But they do that on every birthday. The Granados they have more Zoom calls than a business, man, and so they're always chit chat. And so we'll get that together. I mean, I don't know. I'd like to be able to. Cammy's not a thing person. She wants the experience of it. She wants family close. So we'll probably plan, I would say, something for fall.
Nice.
When hopefully we can get together as a family and go somewhere. But for right now, I don't know. I'm a little short on ideas. I got to be honest with you.
How many people can you actually have on a Zoom call? Because when I think of the Granado family, all I see is like a screen full of squares.
That's exactly it. So the answer is her brother Joe is a brilliant guy. Has worked for a few companies. He's kind of like, he's a pretty impressive guy. Mm. So your question, how many people can you put on a Zoom call, is not for me. It's for Joe.
All right. Okay.
When I text Joe about a week ago, I said, "Hey Joe, I was looking for a little help with Cammy's birthday," and he sent a note back, "I'm expecting a call." So they know. They know.
By the way, does Cammy get the primary assist for hooking us up with Hilary? Is that fair?
Or, by the way,
your initial idea,
but here's the thing. When I brought it up, after watching the game on Sunday, which was outstanding from Madison Square Garden, you said, "Well, how would we get her number?" And Cammy had heard you, and she's like, "Did he just ask, how are you going to get the number?" So I turned and I said, can we get...
so used to having to get all the numbers and line up the guests. I just
yes, you do. I would say 87% of the guests are on your ballywick. There's an underused word.
Ballywick?
I don't even really know what it means, but it seems
I don't either.
Use it there too.
Okay, well, perhaps somebody can follow up on one of our social medias. Twitter. I love Twitter. You like Twitter. So somebody will be
I'm liking it less and less. I got to be honest.
I think it was bailiwick is the actual
Is
word.
It bailiwick?
Yeah.
Well, that means in all the things you look after, doesn't it?
I have no idea. It would be in my bailiwick of things that I look after. Yeah.
Yeah, well, get us out of here, would you?
All right, buddy. What else have you got lined up between now and
Leaf Canuck game on Thursday tonight from Vancouver. Next week, I've got 2 Winnipeg Toronto games. They play Tuesday and Thursday in Toronto. So busy 10 days. Got a couple of Jets games from like literally right over there. Yeah. I'll be doing the intermissions with Sarah Orleski, and the days they fill up. They fill up. That's for sure.
Well,
how about you?
More of the same. Just game after game.
When's insider trading?
Tuesdays and Thursdays every week. It's like clockwork.
All righty. So you got something big for tonight?
I do. Can't share it though.
Yeah, good. I'll be tuned in.
Probably draft related. We're not going to get into it because we might have a decision on the league not moving the drafts by the time we get to episode 13. So that'll be something that we can sink our teeth into next week. So
perfect.
We've got to give a huge shout out, Ray, to our partners who make the podcast possible week by week. That is coolbet.co, the free-to-play sports and casino games website. And again, welcome aboard to our friends at OK Tire. Hope you've enjoyed episode 12. Be well and get set for another great episode of the Ray and Darren Hockey Podcast next week, episode 13.